I trusted her with everything, my idea, my passion, my future. I thought we were building something together, until the day I saw my startup on the front page without my name on it. That's when I knew she stole it. It started with late-night coffees, cheap notebooks full of scribbles, and wild dreams whispered between bites of vending machine snacks. Back then, it wasn't about money or fame. It was about building something that mattered. I'd always had this idea, this vision of a platform that could connect freelance creators directly to ethical clients. No middlemen, no hidden fees, just honest, creative work meeting honest demand. I wasn't technical enough to build it all on my own. That's where Mia came in. We met during a startup pitch competition at our university. She was sharp, quick with ideas, and even quicker with code. I pitched my concept during a group brainstorming session, and she lingered afterward, asking questions no one else bothered to ask. "You really believe in this, don't you?" she said, almost like she was testing me. I did, with everything in me. So when she offered to help me build the prototype, it felt like the stars had aligned. We became a team, just the two of us, working in library corners and borrowed classrooms. I handled the user research, brand voice, and business model. She built out the backend and UI. Somewhere along the way, I started seeing her as more than just a teammate. Maybe it was the way her eyes lit up when she cracked a bug, or how she always brought me my favorite energy drink without asking. We shared jokes, frustrations, small victories. It felt like we were building more than a startup, maybe a future together. But even then, I ignored the signs, like when she started taking meetings without me or when she brushed off my concerns about version control and access. "Don't worry," she'd say with a smile. "I've got it all backed up." And I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She was my friend, maybe more than that. We were building something together. Or so I thought. It didn't happen all at once. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't crash down like thunder. It seeps in slowly, like a leak you don't notice until the ceiling caves in. At first, it was little things. Mia started missing our late-night work sessions, saying she was too tired or had something come up. I figured she just needed space. We'd been grinding hard and burnout was real. I didn't want to be the guy who pushed too much. But then she stopped sharing updates. The files she used to send me daily started arriving late, or not at all. When I asked, she'd say, "Oh, I'm just tweaking a few things, nothing major." I trusted her, I didn't press. Still, something felt off. I remember one moment clearly. We were sitting in the corner of the campus cafe, laptops open, half-finished code and pitch notes scattered between us. I was explaining this new idea I had, how we could build in a review system to protect creators from shady clients. She just nodded absent-mindedly, barely looking up from her screen. "You okay?" I asked. She glanced at me then, but her eyes didn't have that spark anymore. Not the one I used to see when we talked about the future. Instead, her face tightened for half a second like she was calculating something. "Yeah," she said, "just thinking." About what I didn't know, but it wasn't us, not the startup, not the dream. Then there was the meeting she didn't invite me to. A professor had offered to connect us with a local angel investor, and she told me afterward that she'd gone alone because it was last minute, and she didn't want to bother me. I nodded, smiled even, tried not to show that it hurt. But in that moment, something cracked inside me. Not enough to break, not yet, but enough to make me start wondering if we were still building the same thing, or if she had already started building something of her own. I wanted to believe in her. I needed to. It happened on a Thursday morning. I remember because I had just come out of a restless night, worrying about a bug in the user flow we were supposed to fix together. I opened my laptop, intending to send Mia a message, something casual, maybe even an apology for being too intense lately. But then, as I scrolled through my feed, I saw it. A post from a local startup blog. Breakthrough platform connects freelancers to ethical clients. Meet the visionary behind Creator Bridge. I froze. The logo looked familiar. The mission statement, nearly word for word from our pitch deck. I read through the article, every line tightening something in my chest. The codebase she built, ours. The business model, mine. The name, a slight tweak from our working title, just different enough to pass. But the part that knocked the air out of me. Her smile in the photo. She stood alone, shaking hands with a venture capitalist, full of pride and confidence. There was no mention of me, not even a vague reference. I'd been erased. At first, I thought it had to be a mistake. Maybe the journalist got it wrong. Maybe she meant to include me and this was just some misunderstanding. So I called her. No answer. I texted, "Hey, saw the article, can we talk?" Read, no reply. I waited minutes, hours, my heart sank with each one. By evening, I'd stopped waiting. I walked around the block in circles, trying to make sense of it. Anger bubbled under the surface, but mostly I felt hollow, like someone had carved out the part of me that used to believe in people. The next day, I saw her on campus. She didn't avoid me, she didn't even look surprised. "You weren't moving fast enough," she said, as if she was explaining the weather. And I couldn't risk losing the opportunity. I stood there, staring at the person I used to trust more than anyone, and I realized she didn't steal just the idea. She stole us. For days after that conversation, I couldn't bring myself to do anything. I'd open my laptop, stare at the empty desktop, and close it again. Food lost its taste. Sleep came in short, restless bursts. My phone buzzed with messages from classmates who had seen the article, some asking why I wasn't mentioned, others assuming I had nothing to do with it at all. I didn't reply to any of them. What could I say? That I trusted someone who took everything I had and walked away. The worst part wasn't losing the idea. It was losing my own belief that I was capable of anything. I started thinking maybe Mia was right. Maybe I was too slow, too hesitant, too soft. Maybe I didn't deserve to build something that big. I skipped class. I ignored calls from my parents. I even deleted the folder with all our original work, prototypes, sketches, brand drafts. I didn't want the reminder. It hurt too much. One evening, I sat in the campus library, not to study, but just to sit in a place that used to feel full of possibility. That's where an old friend, Aaron, found me. We hadn't talked much lately, but he sat down anyway, no questions asked. After a long silence, he said, "I remember how passionate you were about that idea, man. You lit up whenever you talked about it. You really think she's the only one who can build it." I didn't answer. I didn't have the energy. Then he added, "Maybe she stole the blueprint, but she didn't steal your why. That's still yours." That line stuck with me. It didn't spark some dramatic comeback. I didn't jump up and start coding, but it planted something tiny and quiet, a seed. For the first time since it all fell apart, I let myself imagine what it would look like to start again. Not to prove anything to Mia, not to compete, but to rebuild something for me. It took me 3 more days to even open a blank file. I kept making excuses, telling myself I wasn't ready, that it wouldn't be any different this time, that I'd fail again and maybe worse. But every time I remembered the way Mia had looked at me, so cold, so matter-of-fact, I felt something twist inside me. Not rage, not even revenge. Just this quiet, stubborn voice that whispered, "You're not done yet." So I started. I didn't dive in with some grand plan. I wasn't even sure where to begin. But I opened my laptop, created a fresh folder, and titled it Second Draft. That night, I wrote the first line of code. It was clumsy, ugly even, nothing like what Mia could do, but it was mine. I sat there, watching the blinking cursor like it was the only pulse I had left, and somehow it gave me just enough life to keep going. Each night after that, I added something new, a rough homepage layout, a basic sign-up form. I wasn't building a company yet, I was just proving to myself that I still had it in me. The silence was my new co-founder. No team chats, no shared docs, just late nights and lo-fi playlists. At times, I'd stop and wonder what she was doing, how far ahead she'd got, and how polished her version looked. But I didn't let myself linger there. Because this version, it wasn't about catching up to her anymore. It was about building the platform I had dreamed of, the one that didn't just connect people but protected them, the one that valued honesty as much as innovation. Some nights the doubt crept back in. I'd stare at the screen for hours, wondering if any of it would matter. But every time I pushed through and wrote even one more line, I felt myself standing up again, bit by bit, piece by piece. I wasn't healed. I wasn't whole. But I was moving. And for the first time in weeks, that was enough. The world had moved on from me, and in some strange way, that was a gift. No one was watching. No one expected anything from me. While Mia's face popped up in interviews and LinkedIn posts, I worked quietly in the background, building my version of the platform with nothing but a borrowed laptop and free software trials. I didn't have investors, I didn't have a team. But I had time. And I had hunger. Each day blurred into the next. Wake up, code, crash, repeat. There were no deadlines but the ones I gave myself. I taught myself what I didn't know, watched videos on UI design and secure databases, and read forums until my eyes burned. I broke the app more times than I can count. Each time I swore I was done, but then something small would work again and that spark would return. I didn't tell anyone, not Aaron, not my parents. It felt too fragile, like if I spoke about it out loud, it might collapse under the weight of expectation. So I kept it to myself, my quiet rebellion, my secret blueprint. There were nights I felt completely alone. No validation, no support, just a dream that only I still believed in. But that solitude also forced me to strip away the noise. What did I really want this product to be? Who was I building it for? I remembered the early conversations with freelancers during our research. The mom who needed a safer space to find clients. The student who got ghosted after working 3 weeks without pay. Their voices echoed in my head, reminding me that the mission was always bigger than just making money or going viral. Mia had built something flashy, but I was building something right. And slowly I could feel the code taking shape. Cleaner, smarter, more secure. I wasn't chasing her anymore. I was chasing clarity. In the quiet, in the shadows, something real was growing. And this time, no one could take it from me. It had been 3 months since I started over when I saw her name light up my screen. Mia, incoming call. I stared at it like it wasn't real, like my phone was playing some cruel trick. For a moment, I felt my stomach turn the way it used to whenever we talked, this complicated mix of nerves and admiration. I didn't answer. She tried again the next day, then she messaged. Hey, can we talk? Nothing else, no apology, no explanation. Just those 5 words floating there like a lifeline I didn't ask for. I waited 2 days before replying. About what? Her response was almost instant. I made a mistake. That was it, no long message, no defense. But something about those 4 words made everything inside me light up, some with anger, some with confusion, and a small, dangerous part with hope. We agreed to meet at the same cafe where we used to work side by side. She looked different, tired, more polished, like someone who'd been trying too hard to look in control. I waited for her to speak first. I thought I could do it without you, she said, voice low. But it's not working, the investors want real traction, the team's a mess, and she looked down, I miss what we had. I felt frozen in place. Part of me wanted to ask why now? Part of me wanted to yell, to say things I had rehearsed 100 times in the shower. But mostly I just felt sad, for her, for me, for what we could have been. I'm building it, I finally said. My version, quietly. Her face changed just for a second. That flicker of surprise or maybe fear. Would you ever consider teaming up again? She asked, carefully, like the idea was a gift. I looked at her, really looked at her. And I realized something. I didn't need her anymore. I'm good, I said gently, but I hope you figure it out. I left before she could respond. It hurt walking away, but it felt a lot like peace. I'd imagined the launch 100 times in my head, how it would look, how it would feel. In most versions, there were fireworks, press releases, maybe a dramatic reveal that put Mia's version to shame. But when the real launch day came, it was just me. No spotlight, no audience, just a small website, a working product, and a quiet click of the publish button. I sat there for a while staring at the screen. The site was live, the platform worked, freelancers could create profiles, clients could post jobs, payments were secure. The rating system I'd spent weeks perfecting, flawless. It wasn't flashy, but it was honest. I'd named it TrueLink, because that's what I wanted to build from the start. A space where trust wasn't just a word in a slogan, it was built into every feature. The first few days were slow. A couple of signups trickled in, friends of friends, beta testers I'd reached out to quietly. I handled every support ticket myself, responded to every message with care. I watched as people gave feedback, offered suggestions, and for the first time said, "This feels different, this feels safe." One day, a freelancer named Tasha messaged me. She'd been burned on CreatorBridge, Mia's platform. Promised payment, ghosted. No way to report the client. She was hesitant, bruised. "I just want to work without being taken advantage of," she said. I told her, that's exactly why I built this. That's when it clicked, this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about the people who needed what I had built, and I had built it from the ground up. No stolen lines, no shortcuts. Just a second chance made real. A week later, a tech blogger wrote a piece titled, "A Better Bridge: How TrueLink is Quietly Redefining Freelance Platforms." It wasn't viral, but it reached people, real people. That night, as I watched the user count tick upward, I didn't feel proud in the loud, chest-pounding way I'd expected. I felt calm, because after everything, after betrayal, after silence, after doubt, I had made something true. It was a Tuesday morning when she texted me again. Just a screenshot, a headline from a mid-sized tech news outlet. TrueLink gains momentum as freelancers flock to safer, smarter platform. No caption, no follow-up, just that. I stared at it for a moment, my coffee cooling in my hand. I didn't know if she sent it out of surprise, spite, or something closer to regret, but I didn't reply. I didn't need to. The article was honest, thoughtful. It talked about the platform's user protections, the transparent review system, and how freelancers were leaving other services, including CreatorBridge, because they felt ignored and unsafe. It wasn't lost on me what that meant. Mia was watching the thing she took unravel, while the version she tried to leave behind was growing stronger every day. Later that evening, I checked CreatorBridge's public dashboard. User activity was down. Posts on forums talked about delayed support, bugs, ignored complaints. It was clear she had the funding, but not the foundation. That used to bother me, the unfairness, the idea that she got the spotlight while I built in the dark. But not anymore. I was walking home when I saw her across the street. She didn't see me. She was sitting on a bench alone, phone in hand, staring off into the distance. And for the first time, I didn't feel anger. I didn't even feel vindicated. I just felt free. I had built something real, not in response to her betrayal, but in response to what it awoke in me. Resilience, focus, clarity. I thought about walking over, maybe saying something, but what was left to say? She'd made her choices, and I'd made mine. I turned the corner, hands in my pockets, heart steady. I wasn't the guy she betrayed anymore. I was the guy who turned pain into purpose and built something better, not to beat her, but to finally become myself. The further I got from it all, the clearer everything became. It had never really been about Mia. Yes, she betrayed me. Yes, she took something we built together and tried to make it hers alone. But she wasn't the reason I stayed up for nights in a row rebuilding code from scratch. She wasn't the reason I answered every support message like it was life or death. And she wasn't the reason freelancers started trusting TrueLink. That came from something deeper, something that had been with me long before she walked into that co-working session with her perfect wireframes and big ideas. It came from watching my dad struggle for years as a contract worker, always chasing payments, always hoping the next client would be honest. It came from seeing people like him, people with talent, drive, and heart, being taken advantage of simply because the system didn't care. She had copied the idea, but she never understood the reason behind it. That's why TrueLink worked, not because it was prettier or trendier or backed by big money, but because it was rooted in something real. Now, months after the launch, the platform was growing steadily. We weren't viral. We weren't the talk of Silicon Valley. But we were trusted. I'd brought on a small team, people who believed in the mission. People who asked hard questions, who challenged me, who reminded me that leadership wasn't about being the smartest person in the room. It was about listening, learning, leading with intention. Every now and then someone would mention Mia, ask what happened. I never gave details. I didn't need to. Because this story, it wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. And it wasn't about revenge. It was about remembering who I was before the betrayal and becoming someone stronger after it. As I looked out over the city one evening, watching the lights flicker on across apartment windows, I smiled. Not because I'd won, but because I had finally let go. And in that release, I had built something far more powerful than any startup. I had built myself back,